Let me say this slow because what happened still doesn't feel real. My dad wasn't even cold yet, and my brother stood up at his funeral and announced he was selling our family home. Not next month. Not after things settled. Right there, in front of 40 people. And the craziest part, my mother nodded like it was already decided. You ever been in a room so full of people, but suddenly feel completely alone? That was me. I'm Brianna. I'm 38, and 3 weeks ago, my entire world cracked open in a funeral home that smelled like lilies and fake sympathy. My brother Marcus cleared his throat, stepped back up to the podium, and said, "We've made the difficult decision to sell the house." The house. The one I grew up in. The one with the creaky porch steps. The one where my dad taught me how to ride a bike. The one place I thought would always be home. I looked at my mom, waiting for her to shut it down. She didn't. She nodded and said, loud enough for everyone to hear, "Your dad would understand. Your sister can find another place." I swear, it felt like someone slapped me in front of God and everybody. No one looked at me. Not my aunts. Not my cousins. Not the family friends who watched me grow up. They just let it happen. But what they didn't know, what Marcus didn't know, was that my father had been planning for this moment for 15 years. And in a few days, everything was going to flip. But before I tell you how that bomb went off, you need to understand how my family worked. So let me take you back to the night everything started unraveling. It was 2:07 a.m. when my phone lit up my studio apartment in Center City, Philly. Tiny place. IKEA bookshelf. One stubborn snake plant I'd kept alive for 6 years. Stacks of old accounting textbooks I couldn't bring myself to throw away. Mom's name flashed on the screen. That alone told me something was wrong. "Your father collapsed," she said. "He's at Jefferson Memorial. Come now." No please, no emotion, just instructions. I threw on whatever clothes were closest, grabbed my keys, and drove 45 minutes through empty highways in my beat up 2015 Camry. The one with 120,000 miles and a check engine light I'd been pretending not to see. When I pulled into the hospital parking lot, I saw it immediately. Marcus's black Mercedes. Shiny. Polished. Parked right up front. Of course he'd beaten me there. By the time I reached the ICU, Dad was already gone. Just like that. The last time I'd spoken to him was 3 months earlier. A 90-second phone call. "Are you okay?" he asked. "Yeah," I said. Then silence. Then excuses to hang up. I didn't know that would be the last time I'd ever hear his voice. I've always been the one who arrived last. But that night, I would have given anything to be early. The next morning, I drove back to the house I grew up in for the first time in 3 years. Colonial style. 4 bedrooms. Suburban Philly. Wraparound porch. Backyard where I used to catch fireflies in mason jars. The kind of neighborhood with American flags on mailboxes and neighbors who wave like they actually know you. Marcus was waiting at the door. He hugged me. Quick, one-armed, obligatory. "Long time, sis," he said. "You look tired." I didn't answer. I was too busy noticing the Louis Vuitton duffel bag in the hallway. The golf clubs leaning against the wall. The Gucci loafers lined up by the stairs. Marcus had been unemployed for 8 months. But somehow, he was living like a man who never heard the word budget. I carried my bag upstairs. To my old bedroom, or what used to be my bedroom. The walls were still pale blue. Same color I painted when I was 15. But my bed was gone. In its place, Marcus's overflow, designer luggage, sneaker boxes, a flat screen TV still in its packaging. My childhood bedroom had become my brother's storage unit. That's when something cold settled in my chest. I didn't ask why. Some questions answer themselves. The funeral was scheduled for 5 days later. I handled everything. The obituary, the flowers, the calls to relatives who suddenly cared again. Marcus handled the performance. Every neighbor who showed up with a casserole got the same speech. The same practiced grief. The same politician smile. But behind closed doors. Whispers. Hushed conversations that stopped when I entered the room. Phone calls Marcus hung up too fast. And one night, I found something in my dad's basement office. A document. With my name on it. And a company I'd never heard of. That piece of paper. It was the reason my brother's plan was already dead. You ever find something by accident, And the second you touch it, you know your life just split into before and after. That's exactly what happened in my dad's basement. The night before the funeral, I couldn't sleep. Grief does that to you. It doesn't knock, it just sits on your chest and dares you to breathe. So I did what I've always done when my brain won't shut up. I organized. My dad had a small office in the basement. Old school. Wooden desk, filing cabinets from the 90s. That faint smell of dust and printer ink. No one had touched it since he got sick. I figured if I was going to be stuck awake, I might as well make myself useful. The first filing cabinet was boring. Tax returns. Utility bills. Decades of responsibility stacked in manila folders. The second drawer. That's where things got weird. Old photos. Mine and Marcus's report cards. A baby picture of me my dad kept even though he barely ever said my name out loud. Then I saw a folder labeled IMPO documents. Inside. My birth certificate. A few photos. And a single sheet of paper with a logo I didn't recognize. Farwell Family Holdings LLC, dated 2009. My name was printed in the text, and at the bottom, my signature. I stared at it like it might blink first. I remembered that day. I was 23. Fresh out of college. Broke. Still trying to believe my dad actually cared about my future. He'd called and said, "Come home. I need you to sign something, just paperwork." I didn't read it. I trusted him. I signed where he pointed, and then I forgot all about it. Until now. I folded the paper and slipped it into my purse. Something told me not to leave it behind. The next morning, I asked my mom about it while she stood at the kitchen counter scrolling on her phone like nothing in the world had changed. "Farwell Family Holdings," I said casually. She didn't even look up. "That company dissolved years ago," she said. "Don't dig into the past, it doesn't help anyone." That was it. Conversation over. But here's the thing. When someone shuts you down that fast, it's usually because you're getting warm. By funeral day, I could feel something brewing. Marcus was jumpy. Mom was unusually calm. The kind of calm that only shows up when decisions have already been made without you. The funeral home was packed, dark wood walls. Stained glass throwing colored shadows across the room. Over 40 people showed up. Marcus delivered the eulogy in a Tom Ford suit that probably cost more than my rent for 3 months. He talked about fishing trips. Heart-to-heart talks. A bond I had never once witnessed in 18 years under that roof. People cried. I sat in the back, listening to stories about a version of my father I apparently never knew. Then came the announcement. The house. The nod. My mother's words. "Your sister can find another place." And just like that, I went from grieving daughter to inconvenience. After the service, I stepped outside just to breathe. November air. Cold, sharp. Honest. Through the window, I saw something that made my stomach drop. Marcus shaking hands with a man in a gray suit. Business cards exchanged. A folder with a real estate logo. He brought a realtor to my dad's funeral. I watched them leave separately. My mom, Marcus, and the realtor. All headed toward the house. They were showing it, before my father was even in the ground. That night, the relatives left, and the house went quiet. Just the 3 of us. Mom in Dad's leather chair, Marcus sprawled on the couch, me standing in the doorway like a stranger. "I need to ask you something," I said. Mom didn't look up. "What?" "You said we all agreed to sell the house." Marcus laughed. Not amused, dismissive. "Bri, you haven't been part of this family in years. Why do you care?" "Because it's my home. Because my dad just died. Because I exist." But I didn't say all that. Instead, I said, "I wasn't asked." Mom finally looked at me. Her eyes were sharp. "Cold. You walked away," she said. "You don't get a vote." Marcus leaned forward. "And if you make this difficult, I'll remind everyone why you stopped talking to Dad for 2 years. That landed hard. He weaponized my deepest regret like it was nothing. 3 days later, Mom called a family meeting. 15 people crowded around the dining table, and that's when Marcus slid a paper toward me. A document with one clear message: sign this, or we destroy your reputation. But what they didn't know, what they couldn't know, was that the house might not belong to them at all. And the man who was about to confirm it, my father's estate lawyer. You ever sit at a table where everyone's staring at you like the verdict's already in? and all that's left is to see whether you'll break. That's exactly how that family meeting felt. 15 people, one dining room, and enough judgment in the air to choke on. Aunt Dorothy, Uncle Frank, cousins I barely recognized. My grandmother sitting quietly at the end, hands folded like she was at church. Mom stood at the head of the table with a neat stack of papers, like this was a board meeting instead of a family implosion. Marcus sat to her right, arms crossed, staring at me like I was a problem he couldn't wait to solve. "Here's the situation," Mom said. "Your father didn't leave a complicated estate. The house is the primary asset, worth around $800,000. My chest tightened. "My plan," she continued, "is to sell it, clear outstanding debts, and use what's left to support myself in retirement." Grandma cleared her throat. "And Brianna?" Every head turned toward me. "Brianna has her own career," Mom said smoothly. "She moved away years ago. Built her own life. She doesn't need support." Aunt Dorothy jumped in fast. "You can't walk away from a family and then come back with your hand out." "I'm not asking for anything," I said. "I'm asking to be included." Marcus smirked. "You are included. You're sitting here, aren't you?" A few people laughed, the kind of laugh that tells you no one's on your side. Then Marcus slid the paper toward me. The title hit me first. Descale amar ofa entast anstet parpas. "What is this?" I asked. Mom leaned forward. "You sign this, and you formally give up any claim to the house or the proceeds. Keeps things clean." "You want me to give up my inheritance?" Marcus shrugged. "Dad didn't leave you anything. This just makes it official." "If I have no claim," I said, "why do you need my signature?" His jaw tightened. "Because we want this done fast. And we don't need some estranged daughter showing up later making noise." Mom's voice dropped. "If you don't sign, I'll tell everyone exactly what kind of daughter you've been." There it was. The threat. The same one Marcus had already used. Silence swallowed the room. Uncle Frank sighed. "Don't make this harder than it needs to be." Everyone watched me like they were waiting for a show. I picked up the pen. Dad's Mont Blanc. The one he got for 20 years at work. My hand hovered over the line. Then I set it down. "I need time," I said. Marcus's smile vanished. "You have 24 hours. I drove back to my apartment that night feeling like I'd already lost. The studio felt colder than usual, smaller. I sat on my couch in the dark and ran through the options. Sign it. Walk away. Let them have everything. It would be easier. No more meetings. No more accusations. No more begging to belong. But then I remembered the paper in my purse. Farwell Family Holdings LLC. And something in me said, "Not yet." I dug through my dad's old address book. One name stood out from the funeral program. Gerald Whitmore. Estate attorney. I stared at the number for a long time before dialing the next morning. His office was downtown. Brick building. Brass nameplates. The kind of place that smelled like old money and older secrets. When I walked in, he stood up immediately. "Miss Henderson," he said, "I was hoping you'd call." That stopped me cold. "You were, yes. Please sit." I handed him the LLC document. "I found this," I said. "I don't know what it means." He looked at it. And for just a second, something flickered across his face. Relief. "Do you know what this is?" he asked. "My mother said it dissolved." He shook his head slowly. "Your mother is mistaken." He opened a drawer and pulled out a thick folder. "Miss Henderson," he said, "your father asked me to tell you something. But only when the time was right." My heart started pounding. "The house on Maple Street," he continued, "is not part of your father's estate." I blinked. "What? In 2009, your father transferred the property into Farwell Family Holdings LLC DAO." I leaned forward. "Then who owns the LLC?" He looked at me over his glasses. "You do." I couldn't breathe. "That's not possible," I said. "I would have known." "Your father was very clear," Whitmore said. "He wanted it confidential. From everyone." "Why?" He pulled out another document. "In 2008, your father noticed changes in Marcus. Gambling. Debt. Patterns that worried him." My mind flashed to Marcus's frantic phone calls. His fear. "He loved your brother," Whitmore said. "But he didn't trust him." "And your mother?" Whitmore didn't answer that. He built a structure to protect the house, he said. And he chose you as the sole member. 15 years. My father had been protecting me silently for 15 years. Whitmore slid a sealed envelope across the desk. My name was written on it, in my dad's shaky handwriting. He asked me to give you this when things went wrong. I didn't open it. Not yet. Because the next step was a formal will reading. And when that room heard the truth, nothing in my family would ever be the same. You ever walk into a room knowing everyone thinks they've already won, and realize you're holding the one card they never saw coming? That's how I felt walking into Gerald Whitmore's office that Friday morning. 10:00 a.m. sharp. 4th floor. Mahogany conference table. Oil paintings of Philadelphia landmarks on the walls like they were watching history repeat itself. I got there early. Whitmore had folders laid out, water glasses at every seat. Projector ready, just in case. Are you ready? He asked. As I'll ever be. They started filing in right on time. Mom first. Black designer dress, pearl necklace locked at her throat like armor. She didn't look at me. Marcus came in late, of course. Same Tom Ford suit, same confidence, same grin like this was already a done deal. Uncle Frank, Aunt Dorothy, Grandma, a couple cousins who came strictly for the drama. Marcus caught my eye and smirked. Bring a pen this time. I didn't answer. Whitmore closed the door. Let's begin. He went through the basics. Personal items to Mom. Savings accounts around 47 grand to Mom. Dad's car to Marcus. Mom nodded, satisfied. Marcus leaned back like a man watching his investment pay off. Then Aunt Dorothy leaned forward. And the house? She asked. The Maple Street property. Whitmore paused. Took off his glasses. Cleaned them slowly. Put them back on. There's an issue? The room went dead quiet. What kind of issue? Mom asked. The Maple Street property, Whitmore said, is not part of Richard Henderson's personal estate. Marcus laughed. That's ridiculous. He lived there for 30 years, Whitmore said calmly, but he hasn't owned it since 2009. He opened a folder. In 2009, your father transferred the property into a limited liability company called Farwell Family Holdings LLC. Marcus shot up in his chair. What the hell is that? The company is properly formed. The transfer was recorded. All taxes and fees have been paid for 15 years. So the company owns the house. Marcus snapped. Fine, who owns the company? Whitmore looked straight at me. The sole member of Farwell Family Holdings LLC is Brianna Henderson. 3 seconds. That's how long it took before chaos broke loose. That's fraud, Marcus shouted, grabbing the documents. She manipulated him. These documents were executed when your father was healthy, Whitmore said. Notarized, witnessed, filed with the state. Mom whispered, never told me. He asked me not to, Whitmore replied. Every eye in that room burned into me. The house, worth nearly $900,000, was mine, not Mom's, not Marcus's. Mine. Mom turned to me. You knew. I found out 3 days ago, I said. After you told 40 people I could find another place. Marcus slammed his hand on the table. We need that money? For what? Uncle Frank snapped. Silence, I answered. $340,000 in gambling debts. The room erupted. Grandma gasped. A cousin muttered, Jesus. Mom broke down. I've given him everything. The house was supposed to be the last resort. I'm not taking your home, I said quietly. I'm claiming what Dad left me. I stood up. You can stay in the house, Mom, I said. Under a lease. $1 a month. Her head snapped up. And Marcus? He doesn't live there. Marcus exploded. You can't do that? I can, I said. It's my LLC. Silence again. I'll help Marcus get treatment, I continued. Real treatment. But I won't fund his destruction. Then I walked out. I didn't make it far. Marcus followed me into the parking lot. Bree, he said, voice shaking. I'm scared. For the first time, my brother didn't look powerful. He looked desperate. And that's when I had to decide. Was this the end of our family? Or the beginning of something harder? You ever see someone who spent their whole life acting untouchable finally admit they're drowning? That's who Marcus was in that parking lot. The confidence was gone. No jokes. No smooth talk, just a man in an expensive suit with shaking hands and hollow eyes. "Bree," he said again. "I'm scared." I didn't turn around at first. I needed a second to steady myself. Because part of me wanted to feel sorry for him, and another part of me wanted to scream. "Explain it," I said. He swallowed hard. "The people I owe," he said, lowering his voice. "They're not patient, they've been following me. Leaving notes on my car. Last week someone slashed my tires." I finally turned to look at him. This wasn't exaggeration. This was fear. "I thought I could win it back," he said. "Just one more bet. One more game. But it never worked, and now I'm buried." I watched my older brother unravel in real time. The golden child. The investment. The one who never had to earn anything. Reduced to this. "You need rehab," I said. "Not money." He nodded. 90 days. "I know. If you go," I said, "really go, then we can talk. If not, you're on your own." He didn't argue. That told me everything. Mom was waiting by my car. Her makeup was streaked. The pearls were gone. She looked smaller than I'd ever seen her. "Did your father leave me anything?" she asked quietly. I thought about lying. About softening the blow, but she didn't need comfort. She needed truth. "No," I said. "He didn't mention you." She flinched. 35 years? She whispered. "I gave him everything." "He didn't trust you with the house?" I said. "And now you know why." She looked down at her hands. "I raised Marcus the way I was raised," she said. "Sons are investments. Daughters are temporary." "Grandma changed," I said. A bitter laugh. "She always saw you." Marcus checked into rehab 2 days later. A real one. No phone. No shortcuts. I didn't visit. I sent one letter. "I'm rooting for you." He wrote back, "Thank you." Mom moved into the guest room under the lease. $1 a month. We didn't talk much. But we stopped fighting. It was a fragile peace, but it was real. I started spending weekends at the house, clearing out clutter, fixing what Dad let go. My old bedroom came first. Marcus's designer luggage went into the garage. Then I repainted. Soft green. A color I always wanted but never asked for. The house felt like it could finally breathe. One afternoon, I found Dad's old key ring. Worn leather, brass keys. Inside the plastic window, a tiny photo of me at 5 years old. He'd been carrying me the whole time. I just never knew. I used to think strength meant yelling, demanding, fighting to be seen. But my dad taught me something different. Sometimes strength is quiet. Sometimes it's paperwork. Sometimes it's protecting someone long before they realize they need it. And sometimes it's choosing not to become the villain they expect you to be. You ever walk back into a place that once hurt you and realize it's not the house that changed, it's you? That was me, standing on the porch of Maple Street 2 weeks later. I didn't move back right away. Not like some victory lap. Not like I'd won. I kept my studio in the city. Work was still there. My life was still there. But on weekends, I came home. And for the first time in years, the house didn't feel like it was rejecting me. The first weekend, I worked in silence. No music. No distractions. Just me, a box of trash bags and decades of unspoken tension. Dad's coat still hung by the door. His boots were lined up like he might need them in the morning. The kitchen clock still ticked too loud. Same as always. I didn't rush. Grief doesn't like being rushed. My old bedroom was first. I carried Marcus's designer bags down one by one. Louis Vuitton, Gucci, stuff bought with money he never earned. I stacked it all neatly in the garage. Not out of anger, out of finality. This room wasn't a storage unit anymore. It was mine again. I painted the walls sage green. Soft, calm, steady. A color I'd wanted since I was a teenager, but never felt allowed to choose. Funny how something that small can feel like freedom. Mom stayed in the guest room. $1 a month. She followed the rules. Didn't question them. We existed in the same house like two people learning a new language. Awkward pauses, careful tones, no sudden movements. Some mornings, she made coffee for both of us. Didn't say anything. Just left the mug on the counter. It wasn't love, but it was effort. And for us, that was a start. Every Sunday, Grandma came over. Always with food. Always with stories. She told me about my grandfather. The stubborn man who never backed down once he knew he was right. "You get that from him," she said one night, patting my hand. I believed her. For the first time, I let myself believe I came from strength, not scarcity. I still hadn't opened Dad's letter. It sat on my nightstand for days. I was afraid. Because once you read words like that, there's no going back. One quiet evening, I finally did. His handwriting was shaky. But the message was clear. Brianna, I know your mother and brother haven't treated you fairly. I'm sorry I never said it out loud. I wasn't brave with words, so I tried to be brave with actions. You're the only one I trust with what matters. I cried. Not quietly. Not politely. I cried like a kid who finally got picked up after being left at school too long. All those years I thought Dad didn't care. The silence. The distance. The way he never defended me out loud. I had it wrong. He wasn't absent. He was building something. Quietly. Because that's the only language he knew. He didn't fight my mother. He didn't confront Marcus. He protected me instead. On paper. In ink. In a way no one could undo. Marcus had 84 days left in rehab. I didn't check in. I didn't hover. Recovery isn't something you supervise. It's something you choose. Mom started asking questions. About my job, my apartment, my life. Not judgmental. Just curious. Felt strange. Like meeting someone new who happened to share my face. One night I sat on the porch with a mug of ginger tea, Dad's favorite. I found his mug in the cabinet. The sun went down slow. The house creaked the way it always had. But this time, it felt like it was finally resting. Like it had been waiting for me to come back and finish the story. Let me say something most people don't like hearing. Forgiveness does not mean access. I learned that the day my brother came home. Marcus finished rehab in early spring. 90 days. No phone, no excuses. He called me first. Not Mom, not his friends. Me. I'm back, he said. Can we talk? I told him to meet me at the house. Neutral ground. He showed up without the suit. No design or anything. Just jeans, a hoodie, and eyes that looked like they'd seen themselves clearly for the first time. I'm sorry, he said. No build-up. No defense. I wrecked everything? I didn't interrupt. When someone finally tells the truth, you let them finish. I thought being the favorite meant I was special, he said. Turns out it just made me lazy. That one landed. I'll help you rebuild, I said. But I'm not carrying you. He nodded. I don't want you to. We talked logistics. Job applications. Therapy. Debt plans that didn't involve family money. He didn't ask for the house. That mattered. Mom listened from the kitchen. Quiet. Later that night she sat across from me. I did wrong by you, she said. Not dramatic. Not defensive. Just honest. It wasn't an apology I'd waited for. But it was the first real one. Marcus moved into a small apartment near his new job. Mom stayed in the guest room. The house found a rhythm. Not perfect, but real. I used to think closure meant confrontation. Now I know. It means peace with or without permission. And that's when I realized. This story wasn't about the house. It never was. For most of my life, I thought my father didn't love me. I was wrong. He just loved me in a language no one ever taught me to listen for. The house on Maple Street didn't change overnight. It still creaked when you walked too fast down the hallway. The porch light still flickered when it rained. The kitchen window still stuck unless you lifted it just right, but I changed. And that made all the difference. I stopped asking my mother to become someone she wasn't. She showed care through control, through silence, through choosing who mattered most. Understanding that didn't excuse it, but it freed me from waiting for her to change. We coexist now. Some days we talk, some days we don't. And that's okay. Marcus didn't magically become a new man. Recovery isn't a movie montage. He relapsed once, emotionally, not with gambling, but he caught it early. Called his sponsor. Didn't hide. That mattered. We don't pretend the past didn't happen. We acknowledge it and move forward anyway. That's the rule. One afternoon months later, I found something else of my dad's. A notebook. Inside were budgets, notes, reminders, and one page with just 3 words written at the top. Protect Brianna first. That's when it finally hit me. The house wasn't the gift. The choice was. My father didn't stand up for me in rooms full of people. He stood up for me in rooms full of paperwork. He built something so solid that even the people who underestimated me couldn't touch it. That was his apology. That was his love. I used to believe strength meant being loud. Now I know it means being unmovable, being prepared, being willing to stand alone if necessary. If you're listening to this and you've ever felt invisible in your own family, if you've been told you were strong enough to go without, if love came with conditions and silence came with judgment, me clearly, you are not hard to love. You were just surrounded by people who loved wrong. Protect yourself, set boundaries, and if someone calls that selfish, let them, because survival sometimes looks like walking away with the keys and not apologizing for it. Thank you for staying until the end. If this story hit you, hit like, subscribe, and share your story in the comments. Until next time, be kind to yourself. You've earned it.